Town Board meeting, special Town Board meeting of September 30th. Please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
John Baisley, First Ward.
Bill Carlos, Second Ward.
Michael Safone, Fourth Ward.
Joe Lepore, Fifth Ward.
Ann Shershen, 6th Ward.
Todd Tancredi, Supervisor.
Alicia Salvatore, Town Clerk.
And Mr. Nelson is here, but I'm sure he'll be with us shortly. We have one item. The reason we scheduled this meeting tonight was by town law. The clerk has to I have to present the budget to the clerk by today at 4, which I did, and the clerk has to have it to the town board by October 5th. Our regularly scheduled meeting in October is the 7th, so that necessitated us having this special meeting so Felicia could present the budget. It's got to be presented in a public meeting to the town board. And what I'm going to do is go over the highlights of the budget, basically give a synopsis. We have one special consent item as well. We have an emergency repair that's going to be needed at our one of our pump stations, water pump stations, and we'll get to that after the budget. But what I'd like to do is ask our controller to step forward, and he's got a few slides to show us. I'll do this. Jim, I got it here. We'll go over some highlights, and I'll try to add some comments where appropriate.
Thank you, Todd. Jim Wadowitz, Town Controller. As Todd mentioned, we're going to go over some of the highlights. 2016 budget. It happens to be my 20th budget, and we start this process in July, and it was an enjoyable experience this time around. Todd and I were on the same wavelength. We started off very early. Let me show you the second slide real quick. We had gotten information from the governor that they had a 0.73% levy maximum. I told Todd in July, Todd, that's going to be almost impossible. Todd said, don't want to hear it. We're going to make it. We'll make it work. Met with department heads, started in July, August, September. Happy to report that we did make it. I'm going to go through that number now. Welcome Joe Lepore to the Finance Committee. I know Joe's already made some good suggestions, and we'll miss Stefan. I know Jay's the new chairman. I know it's going to work out great, and we're going to start meeting Jay.
As you can see, as Jim mentioned, the tax cap it was 2% in 12 and 13. 14 and 15, there were slight increases. For the 2016 year, it's been cut to 0.73%. So if we want to give a 1% pay raise, we're going to have to, in order to do that, we've got to find money because our cap is 0.73. So as Jim said, that was challenging.
Okay, so you see the graph. This is supplied by the governor. It started in 2012, the cap, and it's reduced to 0.73% right now. And we came in. Next slide. It's kind of hard to read, but it's in your inside flap on the councilman's books. We came in at 0.71. That's 0.7%. Less than the 0.73. So we're in total compliance with the governor's request.
What this slide is showing you is all the levies that are contribute to the tax cap. So each one of those items we have to take into consideration. Each one of those items, street light and sewer accounts and general accounts when we try to meet the levy.
The way the legislation is written, this board controls 11 levies, and they're the ones up there. From very small, the Carriage Hill Bridge, believe it or not, is one of the levies you control, all the way up to the tax levy that our people see. So yes, we come in at 0.00706, less than 0.71%, so we're in complete compliance in 2016 on this budget as we turn it over to the Finance Committee. Shall I just keep going, Todd?
Yes,
Okay.
Can you make this clearer or not?
it is what it is.
It's hard to read, I know. Now, this is the,
Best I can do for you, Marlene.
this is the form I submitted to the New York State, the governor's office. This basically says we're in compliance, and you can see in your handout that we're $524,000 going into 2017. When you prepare your budget now, you have to think 2-3 years in advance, and Todd was on top of that all the way. So we have $524,000 going into the 2017 budget. So all I wanted to show here was that we're in compliance with the governor. We followed all our forms. Now I get to the actual tax levy. This is what the folks are going to see on their tax bill. The tax levy for the town this year is $22,668,722. General Fund A, General Fund B, which includes our police department and the highway department. The total tax increase is less than 0.2%. So,
Our tax levy is going up $40,000. As you can see, from $22,628,000 in 2015 to $22,600 and, what's that,
68,000.
68,000, 69,000 for 2016, so it's a $40,000 increase. As Jim said, it's less than 0.2%, which will be negligible for the most part. And if you want to go to the next slide, Jim.
I'm going to read a couple of highlights, Todd, then you chime in. In this budget, the town board is getting a $200 raise.
Jim, could you do me one favor? Just go to the next slide, and then we'll recap.
Okay, the next slide here, this basically says what the average tax for. I asked the assessor to give me what the average home was in the town of Poughkeepsie. That came in at $223,000 of assessed valuation. So what we did, we plotted the tax rates. I plotted the $223,000 to this year's tax rate of 4.856. Compared to last year, believe it or not, our folks are going to see a decrease.
The average
For residential.
And what we've based that upon is the average assessed home value in the town is $223,000 per the assessor. So for the average homeowner, based on the average assessed value, we're saying the average homeowner will actually see a $26.09 decrease in their town tax for 2016. I think that's the first time probably in many years that we've actually been able to provide a reduction. But it's a cumulative effort. Everyone's worked hard towards that, but I think it's a very positive for the obviously for the taxpayers. And that was really our objective coming in is to provide the taxpayers with at least some relief from the on the town's end. We understand the burden many of them are under in trying to meet their financial needs. I'm going to turn this.
I got a couple more, Todd.
Oh, okay. Oh, yes.
I
great.
made up a pie chart. Can you see that one? Basically, the pie chart goes over some of the highlights. Police department, highway, recreation, the New York State pension expense, completely in this budget, $3,040,000. Our debt service is about 7% of our capacity, so we're in very good shape with that.
As you can see, if, I don't know if the folks at home, how well they can see the colors in terms of what they represent. The light blue, purple-ish color, the largest graph of the pie, that's for police. The orangish pink is a highway. And then the maroon, which is the maroon, Jim, is, which one? Jim?
Other town support, it looks like.
Yeah, that's the rest of the government outside of police and highway. Yep, thank you. And which one's debt service? I'm just trying to look from here.
Debt service is the maroon.
Yeah.
The
It
really
is,
dark one,
looks purple.
the darkest purple.
Yeah,
Yeah, right there.
Purple is
debt
the,
service.
Purple.
that's debt service, yes.
Purple. This is the rest, other town
Right.
functions outside of
Exactly.
highway and police. The yellow is recreation, and the lime, if that's what you call it, that's our pension expense, which is Comptroller Wadowitz said is just over $3 million. We pay that in one lump sum. We don't term it out. With the state gives us that option, but of course they want their interest, so we pay it in February. So that kind of gives you an idea of where your money's going when you do pay your tax, or what it's going for anyway.
Okay, we just have,
So, some of the items that have fluctuated, that we've moved from year to year, the one important point, I think, is to note that there's no new revenue streams in this budget. We didn't accomplish this budget by creating a new revenue stream that, may or may not work out. And that's always I think residents always need to ask that question. If there's any new revenue streams, because it's an easy way to, maybe to fabricate a scenario that may or may not end up, working out. So no new revenue streams. We did adjust some revenue and expense lines based on history and projections, and a couple of those are as follows. Mortgage tax, last year, 2015, or 2014, our mortgage tax was budgeted at $800,000. When we put the budget together last fall for 15, we didn't think we were going to make the 8, so we reduced that $50,000. By year end, it ended up being way over the $800,000. And now this year, again, based on monthly projections, we're also very likely to go above $800,000 again in our mortgage tax. So this budget increases that revenue line by, we're replenishing that $50,000 and taking it back to the $800,000. Our tax cert line, which is an expense line, as you recall, we've increased that over, probably 5 years ago, and we've been working hard to, monitor that and make sure we didn't go over, but based on information that the assessor's given us, which we talked about a few meetings ago, we're reducing our tax cert line by $25,000, so that's a slight savings there. New York State retirement, we received good news from the state on that one. Rates were down about 10%. We had some contractually agreed upon salary increases to offset that 10% decline some, but still was a small savings there. On the revenue side, again, court revenues were reducing by $65,000 based on last couple of years revenue figures and running totals for this year. We think it's going to necessitate reducing that by about $65,000 to try to ensure that we have as realistic a budget as possible. A couple of things we moved in terms of expenses. All contractually agreed upon raises are in here. CSEA, PBA increases are in the budget. I'm proposing all non-union and management receive a 1% increase, which is what they received last year as well. That's in the budget. I've included a raise for that will include electeds, town board included. It's going to get a $200 increase from $9,700 to $9,900 based on this budget. Our IT budget, if you recall, last year we had put $35,000 in for a capital plan to try to build towards new workstations, and that's a 3-year plan. Our IT manager in charge of our IT, Mark Fink, was also requesting additional monies for Laserfiche. So, because I think it's a better way to budget, we're increasing that line up by another $38,000, which will be over 2 years to pay for this Laserfiche project, which hopefully will result in, once we get it in place, to reduce some of the paper that we generate and use around the office. Last year we put $100,000 into our drainage monies. That again is in the budget for this year, $100,000 to go towards drainage. One thing that I changed slightly in this budget is our transfer station currently runs during the summer months. They're open from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. And after consulting with the highway superintendent and gauging the amount of use and the times people come in, this budget adjusts that slightly to have them open from 7 to noon. It'll allow the employees to still salvage a decent part of their Saturday, whereas if they're working until 2, it really, messes up most of their day. And we also felt that, with the flow, people would still be able to get in from 7 to noon and get what they need to accomplish. So that is represented in this budget. Good news from the county, workers' comp remained flat for 2016, so that was welcome news. Although our gasoline price is down, as reflected just in the retail pricing, I didn't change it. We left it the same. We've got budgeted $3.25 per gallon in this budget. My feeling was that's such a volatile area and so fluid that I didn't want to reduce it and run into a problem, next fall or, whenever prices may go up. So I left it the same as trying to be conservative, was I think the agenda there. Water and sewer rates remain flat, remain the same, no change there. Auto Center, if you recall last year, Bill Galbraith, who was managing our Auto Center, noted that he was going to retire, and for 2015 he was working a very limited schedule for half the year, and I think we had budgeted $20,000 for that expense. This year he's completely retired, and that $20,000 is a savings in this year's budget. We are going to go with 3 mechanics there. The gentleman in charge of the Auto Center, actually his request was for an additional employee, but I didn't think we could afford that. So we're going to go, this budget reflects the 3 employees in the Auto Center. One change I've made in the budget, which doesn't have a huge impact on the budget, but I think it'll have a big impact in terms of our residents and what they're seeing. In 2018, we have 2 road bonds that are going to be paid in full. These were 15-year bonds. One was for $4 million and change. One was for $5 million. I think they total about $9 million. They both are going to be paid in full in 2018. So what I'm proposing in this budget is next year we take out a new $10 million road bond. I've talked to the highway superintendent, and he feels that it'll probably take about 3 years to be able to spend that $10 million and pave the roads that we need to pave with it. So the thought is that by the time we have that fully spent out and we roll it out in a bond, these other 2 bonds will be coming off the books. It'll be replaced by the new one. The residents won't see a change in their tax amount to pay for the new bond, because there will be some soft costs and some bonding expense. I've taken $95,000 out of the road maintenance line to pay for it, but highway superintendent's fully in favor. He actually thinks it's a good idea. If we could spend more, we obviously could spend more than $10 million on roads, but I think it'll give us a real good start towards getting some of our roads repaved. And again, the residents, outside of having maybe more of their streets repaved and fixed, they won't see a impact in their the amount of tax they pay to the town. So that is also included in the budget. The only personnel change, and Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, but the only personnel change we have in this budget is in the controller's office. We've had two employees retire, and with the controller's support, we're going to replace one of those people with a part-timer. So basically, we're going from one full-timer to a part-timer in this budget. That'll be through attrition, through retirement. But other than that, there's no change to our employee, our staffing. I think that's kind of the highlights. Again, I'm very happy with the budget. I'm very happy that we were able to keep the taxes where they are. Hopefully, most homeowners, based on assessed value, will see a decrease in their taxes. We'll continue to provide the services that we're providing and maybe do a little better in terms of roads. So all in all, that's...
Plus, hopefully, the bonds, getting another additional $10 million, the rates will be less cheaper than
Well,
the last 15 years.
Yep, hopefully they are. Depending on what happens in the next couple of years, it's very likely the rate we get and the new 10 million will be less than what we paid 15 years ago. So that's true. Yep.
Yeah, and I'm hoping too, when the finance committee gets this, that they take out the money, extra money for the councilman, because I really don't think we run for these positions due to the pay. And I don't think that, although it's small, it's only $200, it's really not necessary.
Well, Ann told me that's how she felt. I disagree. Last year it's always difficult in an election year to make a move like this. Last year we did the same thing, and I think everybody supported it. So, my view is this, these positions are important positions for the good of our town, the stability of our town government. And too often, I think, when we come into election years, there's nothing happening. I mean, these positions need to be attractive positions. I don't know if an extra $200 would do it or not, but I just think you deserve something for the work you do. The residents deserve to be able to say, look, you're not doing this for free. You're not volunteers. We expect something of you. We expect you to, do the jobs we've elected you to do. So what you decide to do is up to you. I think it's a worthwhile, certainly, investment in town government. So that's why I've put it in there.
Todd, I want to thank you, for conservative numbers. We discussed this as we started earlier in the year, that you didn't jump the gun and pull anything back, or times have changed a little bit and put big numbers back in, which we've gotten caught before because our mortgage tax number was huge at one time. But just going slowly, if anything, the market change is positive. We'll end up with more fund balance as it goes along, which the numbers are coming in good this year. So hopefully it keeps going that way. You didn't jump the gun and cut anything and figure you were going to cut out the electric. We had, small electric costs dropped a lot this year in certain areas. We got to be safe because that market, electric, gas, could change any minute. So, you had real conservative numbers without cutting anything. I think it was great. And the fact that we bonded the road after we discussed that, I think was a fantastic way to do it, because we'll get a lot more and we'll get ahead before some of these roads start, deteriorating. We're in pretty good shape in the other bonds that we've done. A lot of roads are in great shape. It's been about 12 or 13 years since we started that.
Yeah.
A lot of these roads are holding up well. And to do this, I think it would get us on some of the roads that are just starting to fall apart. If you can get in and recoat them, that 10 million will probably go a lot further than the ones that we restructured. A lot of roads, did a lot of drainage in the first few bonds we did. So I think this is definitely a plus going forward. And we didn't lose anybody. We didn't change anything that drastically. So I think we're in good shape.
And you mentioned fund balance. This budget does take $200,000 out of our fund balance to, meet the numbers we've met, and which is consistent with what we've done in the past. Our fund balance happens to be very healthy. We're probably at between 12 and 14% for our fund balance, which is something we're pleased with. We've been able to grow it over the last few years in spite of the economy. That's something we've worked hard to do. Moody's likes to see that. The state obviously wants to see somewhere around 10%. Hopefully, if nothing too bad happens in the rest of 15, it may grow even more. But you're right, Jay. We've been able to maintain a fund balance, and we also have one of the things, the criticisms of the tax cap that you'll hear people say is it doesn't allow municipalities to put money towards infrastructure. That's where people cut, because it's things you can't see and you can't feel. You ride over a road and you feel a pothole. You don't know piped under the ground aren't working the way they're supposed to. But one of the things we're able, and we're in the midst of doing, and it's a lot of work, and we're working hard at it, and all of you know this, is we're doing some major upgrades at two of our major infrastructure projects in the town. Our wastewater treatment plant in Arlington is in the midst of a very major upgrade there, first one in about 40 years, which is in dire need. And also our water plant, city, town-owned water plant, is in the midst of a major upgrade that will ensure that we have very good and healthy drinking water for years to come. So, we're doing a lot of I&I work, which is work within the pipes that are underground. With the encouragement of DEC, but we've probably spent about $200,000 on that over the last year and a half, with more to come. So we are trying not to cut on infrastructure. We are spending the money that we need to with infrastructure projects. So all that's budgeted. It's in here. You never know what kind of surprises are going to come your way throughout the course of the calendar year, but hopefully we've accounted for as much as we can.
And that's counter to what was in the paper today. The article in the paper was actually about that. The things that are hurting the most are your sewer infrastructure and your water, because you don't see them. And they say a lot of people are doing the parks and things because it's noticeable, but it's nice that you said do the stuff that's underground, because that's the stuff that's going to hurt when it breaks.
Yeah.
I've been on my first finance committee. I want to thank you, Jim and Todd. I think you guys did an excellent job. Made it easy for me, and I'm sure for Jay, because doing a budget for any town, city, and village in New York State, it's not easy, and especially one New York State is looking for things, for more money. But this budget, I think it's good. I think it's good for the residents. I think it's good for everyone. So I want to say thank you and great job with the budget.
I'll thank the comptroller for all his hard work. He works hard and, is here plugging away day in and day out. So I appreciate all the support and the work he puts in for the taxpayers of the town of Poughkeepsie. All right, any other questions? All right, that's the supervisor's 2016 budget. That brings us to the end of our regular agenda for our special town board meeting. I didn't take any resident comments well, I guess we'll do the special consent item, and then we'll go to, if there's any residents that have any questions.
Sir?
Yeah.
Whereas the town-owned electrical substation which services the Fairview Water Pump Station failed on September 25th, 2015, and yet to be reactivated has again failed. And whereas the pump station, which serves a large number of town users, is currently operating with backup diesel generator power, which backup generator is expensive to operate and presents the potential for public health and safety issue if it fails because of lack of redundancy. Whereas the supervisor, with the assistance of the town engineer and the water department, is exploring the options of repairing the substation, replacing it with a town-owned substation, and replacing it with Central Hudson-owned equipment, but has not yet received the information necessary to make a choice which is in the best interest of the town and the water users. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Town Board of Town of Poughkeepsie, pursuant to General Municipal Law, Chapter 1034, does, for itself and its districts and improvement areas, hereby ratify and adopt the assessment of the town engineering and water department that a public emergency exists, that it has arisen as a result of unforeseen equipment failure, and that the resolution of it cannot await the competitive bidding process. And be it further resolved, the town board hereby authorizes the supervisor to receive and analyze the information which he has requested, to thereafter determine which course of action is in the best interest of the town and the water users, and to thereafter execute all documents necessary to effect the chosen solution, after which the supervisor shall report his decision to the town board. Be it further resolved that this is a public emergency, this is a type 2 action requiring no secret review. So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion?
Go ahead on this. I did not have the special consent motion. Does somebody want to make an oral motion to accept this motion as?
Make a motion to accept special consent items?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So basically, what this resolution is about is we have a water pump station up in Fairview, which basically brings the water into the town. And there's a big electrical, without getting into, which I probably couldn't recite, but all the terminology, big electric transformer almost up there, bigger than the front podium, big piece of electric equipment. And for some reason, it's blowing fuses. These fuses are big, big, enormous fuses. Last week, it blew 2 out of 3. They were replaced, which ran about, I think, between 5,000 and 7,000. I mean, this isn't a little fuse like you have in your home. This is a big piece of industrial equipment. We thought everything was okay. I think on Monday, reported that the fuses were out again. Ray Armstrong, who's the electrician we work with often, was called in, and there's something wrong with this electrical piece of equipment. It's a GE piece of equipment. It's town-owned, which is a little unusual. Most of our pump stations, Central Hudson owns basically the transformer. For some reason, this one we own, so we have a choice. We can call in GE and have them try to fix it, or we can go to Central Hudson and let Central Hudson disconnect this one, we remove it, they put theirs in, and then they own it, and they're responsible for it, and we would pay for that through our monthly billing. So we've contacted GE, which was a little bit of an adventure. Basically, our call was, transferred actually throughout the world, I think, based on people's accents. But the closest repairman is in Rotterdam, and GE's going to charge $2,000 a day to come and look at it and give us a quote. We also made contact with Central Hudson. Central Hudson, and that was as recently as today, Central Hudson has promised to get back with us within 24 hours, so we expect a phone call tomorrow, to find out, what that expense would be in terms of having them bring in their new transformer, one they own, and pay for it. So this resolution is basically to give the authority of, once we get this information, we need to make, a decision, but it's not a decision that really, I don't think should wait, because although we have a diesel pump up there it's not old, it's, running well and seemingly in good condition, and if it went down, we could go to a place like H.O. Penn and rent one of these big diesel generators on a truck. Still, it's running 600 gallons of diesel fuel a day, and the sooner we can make some decisions here, the better. So this is just authorization to let those decisions be made before potentially, if we get this information, say, tomorrow afternoon or Friday morning, we can, put the plan in process, the wheels in motion, right, and report back to you next Wednesday as to how it's turned out. So that's really, this came up today. I thought it was important enough to call Jim and make sure we had this resolution before you tonight so we could move on this as quickly as possible.
Makes sense.
Any questions? All right, so we have a motion. Did anybody second the?
Yeah, I did.
All right, we have a
Will,
motion.
Bill Carlos, from what I got.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. That brings us to the end of our agenda. I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules for public comment.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Is there anyone from the public who'd like to comment? Bob?
Bob Casement. I'd like to say that this budget looks very good.
Thank
I'd
you.
like to congratulate you and thank you and your finance committee and the controller for a job well done. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Bob. Anyone else? All right, seeing no one, I make a motion to resume the rules.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Or, what do I say adjourn, but it probably ought to be suspend or end the
No,
meeting.
it's adjourned.
That is, all right, thank you.
Town board meeting
All those in
adjourned
favor?
at 7:33.
Aye.
Board is completed at 7:34 PM.